Thank you for your willingness to serve as an election worker. You can't run a great election without well-trained workers. The purpose of this training is to provide you with knowledge and skills necessary to succeed at the polling place on Election Day. First of all, don't panic. Though this may be your first time serving as an election worker, there will be others in the polling place with many years of experience dealing with election law and our voting machines. After watching these videos and participating in a brief hands-on session, you will be well qualified to work on Election Day. Before we get started, let me explain how we're going to proceed. In this first video, you'll learn about the polling place, how it's set up, who's in charge, and a lot of general information about how a polling place operates. You'll also get an example of the duties you'll be performing before a vote is ever cast. We will also show you some of the forms and documents you'll be dealing with. In the second video, we'll get deeper into the details of your job, such as troubleshooting common issues that arise and explaining how to deal with them. You'll also get some tips on what to say and what not to say. Finally, in the third video, we'll give you an introduction into the Hart E-Slate voting system. Don't worry, we hope you'll agree with us that it's easy to set up and use our voting system. One other thing, perhaps the most important lesson you can learn today as an election worker, is the importance of checking your politics at the door. Before Election Day, you can support any candidate you wish. You can put up signs, you can go door-to-door in neighborhoods, you can tell everyone in town that you're voting for a candidate. However, once you enter the polling place on Election Day, no one in the room should know whether you're a Democrat or Republican. No one should have any idea of your view on any particular candidate or issue. Never talk politics with your fellow election workers, or especially a voter. Oh, and another thing, working an election is serious business. We're not saying you can't have fun, but don't spend the day on your phone. Mistakes happen when you're distracted. With elections, we can't afford to make mistakes. Now, with all that out of the way, let's learn more about elections in Tennessee.
Let's begin by talking about precincts. A precinct is a geographic unit in which there is one polling place for holding an election. All of us live within a precinct. There are nearly 2,400 precincts in Tennessee and 94 in Knox County. If you vote on Election Day, you must vote in your polling place located within your precinct. There are two ways in which a registered voter may vote before Election Day: early voting and absentee. Early voting is for the voter's convenience. To vote early, a voter must appear in person at either the County Election Commission office or at a satellite voting location opened by the County Election Commission. Early voting begins 20 days before the election and ends 5 days before. There are many advantages to voting early. You can vote at any location and whatever day is convenient for you. As an Election Day worker, we encourage you to vote early. You won't be able to leave your polling place on Election Day to vote in your proper precinct. If all this sounds confusing to you, don't be discouraged. Oftentimes, it confuses the voters as well. Later, we'll discuss the processes we use to get the voter to their proper precinct and polling place on Election Day.
Election Day polling places are located in schools, community buildings, and churches throughout the county. Polling places are open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day and are subject to many regulations governing them. No candidates are allowed inside the polling place except to vote. If the candidate enters the polling place to vote, they must cover up any campaign t-shirts or stickers. Candidates, their volunteers, or their signs are not allowed within 100 feet of the entrance to the polling place. This is a safe zone, mandated by the law to prevent harassment of the voters by the candidates or their volunteers. Next, let's discuss the various election officials. The officer of election is in charge and responsible for all conduct inside the polling place. The officer is appointed to their position by the County Election Commission. State law provides the officer broad authority, and you have a duty to follow their instructions. Your precinct will have at least one machine operator. The machine operator is the person who oversees the voting machines and directs the voter to the proper machine to vote. You may be assigned to be a machine operator in your polling place. Every precinct has 2 registrars. You may be assigned to be a registrar in your polling place. Registrars are responsible for making sure each voter is in the proper precinct, signing in the voter in the signature book, and assisting them in filling out their application for ballot. There are checks and balances built into the system to ensure fair and accurate elections. Both parties are represented in the polling place. There will never be all Republicans or all Democrats working in a polling place. Before the polls open, there will be a zero tape printed off the voting machines, and signed by the officer of election and a member of both political parties. This shows that there were no votes already cast. Seals on the voting machines are checked to ensure a proper chain of custody for the stored votes. At the end of the day, there is a tally tape signed by the officer of election and a member of both political parties. This printed white tape is similar to the zero tape printed at the beginning of the day, except a tally tape lists the results from each machine. The AM/PM form is used by the officer of election to document these steps. Assist your officer in filling it out timely and properly. We watch each other, and we are accountable for each other. That is one of the reasons we have fair and accurate elections. Another thing, as an election official, it's important to understand that we can do no more and no less than what is required by state law. Did you know there must be a flag in the polling place? Did you know the law requires certain signage?
Now let's talk about the registrar's job on Election Day.
Begin by handing the voter an application for ballot. When they return it to you, ask each person, is this where you live? Do you have your voter registration card or other form of identification?
Compare the signature on the application for ballot with one of the following listed forms of identification: Tennessee driver's license, Social Security card bearing applicant's signature, or other documents such as current credit card, canceled check, Tennessee senior card, Medicare, Medicaid card, membership card, or any other document bearing applicant's signature.
Locate the voter's name in the signature list book. If the address is different, get the officer and enact the change of address fail-safe procedure. We'll discuss this form in more detail later. If the signature line has inactive, ballot issued, or voted early printed over it, call the officer.
If voter is eligible to vote, initial the application for ballot.
Place the application number beside the voter's name in the appropriate space.
Show the voter where to sign in the signature book. It's above their name on the list.
Compare the voter's signature with the signature on the voter's identification.
If the voter's name is not on the signature list book, but claims to be registered in your ward or precinct, find the officer of election who will call the Election Commission office.
If a voter cannot sign or make a mark due to a disability, sign for the voter and place your initials after the name.
Return the application for ballot to the voter to give to machine operator.
Be certain that each voter signs the signature list book. With these steps completed, you've performed the duties of a registrar on Election Day. In the next video, we'll look in great detail at some of the issues you may encounter.